Hello, viewers. I am Miss Black Florida, Elise. I am here with Miss Black Texas, Sabrina, and we are going to talk about financial literacy today. I believe she has some questions for me.
I do. And thank you so much for, agreeing to talk with me this morning. Um, so I want to know, I asked some of my social media followers this past weekend, what is a financial goal of theirs? I'm wondering, what is a financial goal of yours?
So one of my long-term financial goals is to save up and acquire property, and then to eventually take that property and rent it out. I believe that the path to success in terms of finance can be found through realty, specifically through property, really. So I want to acquire properties over time, and begin to build wealth in that way. There are other things that I want to do, of course, through my own job and further my own education and everything. But I think that in terms of property ownership, that way lay long-term success well into retirement. Because of course you can think about, when am I going to get my next car, or when am I going to be able to go on my next vacation? But when I think of financial goals, I think very long-term. I want to take good care of my 80-year-old self today.
That's actually perfect. So you're really into real estate. Have you started, have you ever taken a real estate course or anything like that or are you going to do that long term?
So I don't actually want to go through the process of, showing houses or pursuing that as my career. My career is actually in research. I work in academia a bit, and I really enjoy that. But I do like the idea of perhaps hiring a property management company to handle things like collecting rent from people who are going to be living in a space that I'm renting out, or helping me to sell a property if I decide to buy it and flip it or something after, fixing it up. That process, really renting, is what I find can be most sustainable, because I've known many people over my life who have done that, and it's a great way to build relationships in your community. You can give those properties to people who can make a difference. You have an ability to shape the environment a little bit. And it's also a great way to have an additional steady source of income. I've known people firsthand who have worked in my industry and have purchased their first small property, taken that, rented it out, and then purchased more over time with the money that they've acquired from the rent income that they earn, and purchased more properties. And some of them have retired very young. I'm not necessarily trying to retire young and just live off of, rental income. But I think it is a savvy way of acquiring wealth. So that's something I find interesting.
So you just said something that just sparked in me, wealth. So when you think of financial literacy, what comes to mind when you think of financial literacy? What's the, your personal definition of financial literacy?
So I think it means understanding, of course, some key differences in regards to how we think about money, such as, thinking about short-term money versus long-term money. I consider wealth to be long-term money. That's valuable assets like property, maybe a very expensive artwork, things that are old that last, they can pass on from generation to generation, not just from this year to next year or from 5 years from now down the line. I think of it in terms of being able to understand how to work with a savings account, understanding credit and credit cards, what are good decisions versus which are those that you might want to talk to someone about. So that's kind of what I think of in terms of financial literacy. It's not dissimilar from understanding actual English language, only in regards to money. So understanding money, knowing how to read it and the environment that you're in, as well as those beyond your environment. So the general world, how are things doing with stocks and all of that?
Yeah, that's 100%. So, I mean, oh my God, you're so knowledgeable on, I know it's my platform, but you're super knowledgeable on it. I'm super happy. So a financial goal that I know I definitely had was to be able to share my knowledge. And for a long time, a financial goal that I had was building my credit. And that's something you have to continuously maintain. And I know most people think when they think of a financial goal, they're thinking how can I, get money, or how can I acquire more money, or long-term wealth, or, my net worth, how can I build that? Mine is more like credit. Credit is 100% so important to me. One, because it's kind of fun. It's like a game, but it's not a game because it's your life. But credit to me is like a financial goal that's super, super important. Those numbers, a lot of times they dictate where you can get jobs sometimes.
Whether or not you can buy a house or a car.
If you can rent, which, I'm a renter, unfortunately, at this time in my life, whether or not.
I'm as well. A lot of us are. I think,
yeah.
I don't know the exact stats, and I might be incorrect when I say this, but I think it's something like a third of the people that are living in the United States are renters.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot. That's 33.3%.
And I'd like to eventually, through, proper credit management and savings and everything, get to the point where I can move beyond renting to being the owner, to being the person that is, offering.
Doing the renting.
Yes.
Exactly. And another thing for me is savings. I don't know how you save, but I'm an Uber saver. And that's probably not like a great term to describe it, but anytime I have any income, a percentage of it goes directly over to another account. Like, I never even see that money. I never get to see it. And with me, I don't just save for, you have your rainy day fund, of course. I have my regular savings. And I also have an account that I use for gifting people, like as far as like birthdays, holidays. It's just, it's its own account. And I know that it's a fact that people do not save. And I think that's because we live in a consumer world. We live in a really big consumer world where we want gratification.
Status.
Yes, instant gratification. Yeah.
And also I think, and I don't know the stats on this either, but I know that the average person, they say, has less than $5,000 in their savings account. And I know that we're supposed to, and I'm not the greatest about this myself, but I try to have at least 1 year's worth of salary in your savings account. So you should have things set up such that if you were to suddenly lose your job tomorrow, that you would be able to sustain yourself over the next year while you're job hunting. Hopefully it wouldn't take any person that long to find their next job. But in today's society, we have the coronavirus that's a pandemic in our country, and not everyone is in the same job situation. So for example, I'm very fortunate to work within academia, and I'm at the university level and everything, and we haven't really experienced any job losses to a great degree in my department that I'm aware of. So I'm doing well, but I know many people work in, say, for example, the restaurant industry, and that has been hit very hard by this. A lot of restaurants have had to either close, or they're temporarily not available, or they're only doing things like deliveries, and so that's not bringing in the same level of cash flow they were getting before. And as a result of that, people either have to stop doing that because it doesn't really make sense to drive to work and not get paid as much, or to not get paid at all. And so there are a lot of people that are really struggling right now, and they don't have necessarily the savings built up to be able to sustain the lives they had before, when they were getting, kind of almost living paycheck to paycheck. Not quite, but close to that.
Mm-hmm.
So savings has become even more important today for everyone. Even myself, I'm very attentive to my savings now. I feel comfortable, but this is a shaky world, especially now. So what do you recommend in terms of like helping people to stay tuned to their savings and taking care of that if they haven't been taking care of it so well?
I'm third of 9 kids, right? Did I tell you that? Okay, so I'm third of 9 kids, and a lot of my siblings, they're always like, well, how do you do this? How do you do that? Even though, you may not be working, you're able to, you may be able to go on a trip or something. They're just, they get super confused, and it is savings. But how I save, I know that there's the 50-30-20 rule, 50%. So 50% of your income would go towards bills, right? Your living costs, your day-to-day food, this, that. You should not exceed that. 30% should go towards 30% should go towards your savings, and 20% should go towards 20% should go towards things you want to do, like go to the movies, have a good time. Yeah, for some people, maybe, nails and feet. But see, you said vacation. See, yeah, you could put it towards vacation too. But one thing that I find truly, truly helpful, and like I said, I'm a big saver, as far as I consider my savings a fixed cost every month. It's the cost of me living. Paying yourself first is so, so important.
I like how you put that. Pay yourself first.
Yes, yeah. I live by that. Pay myself first. I have an account that's a savings account, and no matter how I make the money, I pay myself first, because that account is for the advancement of me. If I need books, if I need a new computer, if I need anything, it comes out of that savings account. I think of that as a fixed cost. The 50-30-20 kind of works, but it's also important to look at, it doesn't kind of work. It does work if you follow it 100%. But you have to think about this. When you go to rent, they always ask for 3 times you to have an income of 3 times your, to have an income 3 times of your rent cost.
Yeah, I think you're supposed to, the money you're putting towards wherever you're living, it should be no more than a third of what you're making. So
it should be, but you can get qualified
for other places, yeah. And you can technically make that work, but it can make things difficult. So if they're asking for $500 and you make $900, it's kind of getting steep in terms of how much you're putting into where you're living. It might be starting to be considered living slightly above your means, because you have your bills, your food costs, anything else, and your travel. Yeah, travel, anything that you want to do. Because quality of life, you may be able to for a time live, very with a lot of savings and not spend on things, but that might be difficult to maintain, and so then you might splurge here and there, and then that's where it becomes really important to have only that 1/3 going towards that rent. So 30% or less is what you should be spending on rent. And people don't necessarily understand, because I've done it. I'm sure other people have done it. When you have the ability to put in overtime because you're about to go get in a new apartment and you want, or any big purchase, a car, an apartment, those are they're not really purchases, but a car is a purchase. But, whenever you're about to go make a large purchase sometimes, and you have to use your income as proof of means to be able to afford this on a month-to-month basis, a lot of times people will inflate the amount of income that they have. Not saying that they do something like, oh, I'm going to change my check stub or something, but they'll put in, 55 hours and do that. Yeah. Knowing that they normally do 40 or something.
Exactly, making their income look higher than it is, not realizing that you're not going to want to work 55 hours every single week, or it may not even be available to you to work every single week, and therefore you are cheating yourself. And I don't want to say cheating yourself, but you're putting yourself in a bind. Yeah. But you want to live this lifestyle, and I think Instagram has a big play in that. But at the same time, I never ever spend more than 30% of my last place. I had this epiphany. I decided to get a place. I decided to increase I did 2 things. I increased my income, reduced my living costs. So yeah. I was in a really nice condo before that. Lovely. It was great. It was beautiful. But rent was like really high. It was very high, like $1,500. That's rent. We're talking about rent. We're not even talking about, and I live in Texas, so living cost is very low here. And it was $1,500, and then I had my utilities. Then I had to eat. Then I had to get back and forth to work. It was just, and you want to look nice too when you go to work. And end of the month, spending about $2,700 probably.
Yeah.
Because people want to do stuff throughout the week. I was living in a really nice Galleria area, and I catch Ubers everywhere, because who wants to drive? And I realized my job cut overtime, and I realized that I could pay for it, but I couldn't afford it. And I think that was like a reality set in for me. So I stayed in the same area. I looked around for a while, and I found a studio. And I was spending like $600. My rent when I first moved in was like $595.
That's great.
Yes, it was great. So I decided, okay, I did this. I moved over there. Rent was like $595. And then I was like, I have to increase my income. So I started looking for a new job. I got a job, and I was pulling in about 8 times plus my rent without working overtime.
Oh, that's so impressive. Yeah.
Yeah. Every week I was making my rent 3 times. So by my, weekly, by the time I got paid, I had made my rent 6 times. So it was nothing. Like going on trips was nothing. Savings was nothing, and I think that we undervalue that because we always want to have that place where everybody can come over and kick it and have a good time and, like, oh, I love your house and I love this and I love that. But those things are not long-term, and we have to think about it. We're renting.
And I also know exactly what you mean, because I had the same situation with my space that I have now. I'm renting a house. I'm in Florida. And I also wanted to be able to have my friends come over and have an environment that is welcoming and that is current and that I find pleasing to the eye and that my guests find pleasing to the eye. Yes. So what I did when I first moved in, because I knew that that's something that I wanted to be able to entertain. Sometimes I wouldn't have guests over right away. Like maybe like one friend so that I'm not like, alone or anything. I can still go out to their houses or go out to different places where we want to hang out. But I basically plan like, let's go to this place and let's go to that place and we'll have fun in these different spaces. In the meantime, slowly over time, I built up my space. And that way I wasn't overspending beyond my means or, pulling from savings or anything too much. And eventually my space was, okay, this has the look that I want. Now let's have like a big bash here. And I built it up over time, and I still get to have that same feel that I want. But I took my time with it, and I didn't have to, pull from money sources that didn't quite exist for me yet, or pull from money sources that I didn't want that money to be going from, trying to create, this image or anything, not just yet or anything. So that's kind of the approach that I took. And I think a lot of people can do that. You don't have to, as soon as you move into a new space, immediately have, all right, guys, I'm here. Everybody move in. I just tell my friends, look, I'm settling into my space. You can't come. It doesn't look the way that I want it to look for you.
How long did it take you to settle into your space, like as far as getting all your furniture and stuff?
So I planned it out very carefully so that I had some furniture already set before I moved in, and I made it arrive basically the day that I was here. Some pieces, like some larger pieces that were non-essential, like I didn't have to have it to make everything look right. Like my couch or maybe a table or two, I got them over time. And I took like an entire year to slowly put everything together. I painted it in wallpaper. And what I would do too, to make it fun for myself and my friends, is I would take pictures of like the process of making the space. So like if I had a weekend, I would go spend some time with them, say on a Friday or Saturday. And then on a Sunday, I'd be working on my space. And I take pictures of myself building it up so they could see like, look, I am working on it for myself and for you guys so you can come over. You can't come over, but look how, I'm putting the wallpaper, see, and I Instagram that. So it's not, look at my beautiful space. It's look at how I'm creating and building everything.
Putting it together.
And it's more exciting when they come over at the end of the year and they can see, oh, look how it's all come together. And that made it kind of fun for everyone because they could ask questions like, how did you get the wallpaper here? And I could explain like, well, I didn't paint this space because I don't own the property. I found this special wallpaper that you can stick on and it's not permanent. It doesn't, destroy the paper the wallpaper that's behind it. I could tell them how I did everything. It made it kind of like a fun conversation piece because I could explain how I built up my space, made it my own. And they try to like pick my brain and see, oh, how can I do this in my space? Or I love your bathroom curtains, or just like little details. It made it like a financially savvy strategy and like a fun social strategy too. And I was still able to have fun with my friends along the way. But I did have to be careful with money as I was building things up slowly over time. And there were plans too, like say you get a piece of furniture that is a little pricier. I've never done this, but I know that this is available. You can do things like you can not the renting of the furniture, but you can do like a payment plan. So say it costs $100, you can pay like $100 a month for 3 months so that you can slowly get it. It allows you to make the purchase faster, basically, or to just set some of the money aside for other things that you want to put that into rather than paying for your couch or whatever right away. What do you think of those plans, by the way? Do you think
I did that?
Yeah.
I did that. And it I did it so the signs 90 days, no interest, I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that. And I did it successfully. But they tell you what your minimum payment is. You have to be careful with those places. They tell you what your minimum payment is, right? And you can just pay that and then pay it all at the end of the 3 months. What I did is I actually took the time to calculate what the cost of the furniture was, taxes included. And I paid 50% 1 month, 50% the next month. No, I paid 50% 1 month and 40 to 30% the next month. And then the following month, I paid the rest of it.
So you did it in big chunks.
Big chunks. And, you're like, oh, this is going to go on my credit. This is going to help me. It does not go directly to your credit. You have to, because it's still done by a third-party finance company. Yes, okay. Lender. And basically, they get your money. You have to call and make sure, 2 things. One, you need to call and make sure that the payments that you made, when you make the payments, it's going towards your principal balance.
Yeah.
Because if not, when it goes into the system, it's an automatic thing. I don't think that there's ill intent there. I don't think that there's ill intent there, but when you make a payment, it automatically starts going towards what your monthly payment would be. So it's going to hit interest, it's going to hit this, it's going to hit that, insurance, all of that. And so it's not going towards your principal balance. And if your principal balance is not paid off in 90 days, then you didn't pay it, right? So 1, you have to call, make sure your payment is going towards your principal balance. 2, you have to call that finance company and say, I need a letter showing that I paid this off, how long it took me to pay it off, and that I made each payment on time. And then you have to backdoor send that letter out to the credit bureaus, and they will add that to your credit file.
Well, that's really useful to know. It does make me never want to try that strategy just a little bit because it sounds like a lot of work. Unless maybe you paid like with a credit card and perhaps some of the credit would go through that way. But yeah, that seems like a lot of work. And I'm sure that there's a reason that system is set up that way to benefit maybe not the individuals who are making those
finance companies.
Yeah.
Definitely for the finance companies. And I think that's why financial literacy is so important, because we have to understand our relation to the economic world that we live in. I can learn how to save. I can learn this, I can learn that. But if I don't understand my economic, if I don't learn those things, if I don't learn those things, then I don't understand my economic standing in the world. Right. And with that, I will always overspend. I will always make money and just be a consumer. And that goes into total different sociology subject of, thinking of people as products are as pawns. I'm trying to think of the word. I can't think of it. But you know, human capital. You think of people as human capital. And that's kind of problematic. But I think financial literacy, I guess, is important because we have to understand our relationship to this economic system that we live in. Because if you don't, how can you advance it? How can you advance in anything that you don't understand? You know?
I think many of us do get trapped into that world of living as essentially as a consumer. And that a lot of that comes from not enough questions being asked, and not just not enough questions being asked, not enough information being very openly and transparently given to customers, or it being delivered in a way that's palatable and understandable just for the average person so that they can read it and understand that's what that means. Very clear. I know what I'm getting myself into. I understand all the terms. There's no extra special stuff that's tied on in fine print that I'm not going to have to, you know, hire a lawyer to interpret for me, reinterpret, and then, you know, go have any adjustments made to whatever I'm agreeing to. Even at the small level, when you're purchasing something online or in a store, there are little things that are tied into that. For example, right now, many people have probably experienced this. If you purchase something from a store, like say Walmart or Publix, in a lot of places you can't return that product. I had a good friend who purchased something from Publix. It was like a bottle of wine or something, and she was looking for something specific. And she purchased it, took 5 steps out of the store, and glanced at the bottle and then realized, oh, oops, I got the wrong one. It was supposed to be the one next to that. I just grabbed it and didn't think about it too much. She walked right back into the store, hadn't even made it to her car, and was like, I purchased the wrong one. Can I return this and grab the other one? And I said, no, because of the coronavirus right now, there are no returns being made at the store. And that will last a long time. So I'm sure that's just another little thing to be aware of in terms of how you spend. It's important to understand how the entire spending process is working everywhere, in terms of your smallest purchases to your largest purchases or payments and all of that. And then, of course, understanding the larger picture beyond just, you know, what am I buying this year to sustain my lifestyle? Yeah. What are you doing, like I said in the beginning, for the person that you'll be when you're 80? What will that person have? Where is she going to live? Or where is she or he going to live? What is she or he going to be eating? Because you're not going to be working forever. Like, there will be a point in your life where it may be not possible to continue to work. Will you have a source of income at that time? What's it going to be? Because a lot of us think, oh, we're just going to live off of our retirement. But that might not be enough for all of us, and it may not necessarily be available to all of us. It depends on the type of job, depends on what your retirement plan is and how exactly it's doled out, at what age you can begin getting it. Say you have an injury and you need to retire at like 52 instead of 62, which is like the retirement age in my state. Do you have anything in place for yourself? What you're going to do between 52 and 62 to make sure you can continue to live until you can get your other source of income? Do you have an inheritance? How do you go about getting that? Because it's not always as simple as you think.
It's not. And it changes from state to state. And a lot of people don't update wills when people get married and their last name changes. If you're military, sometimes it can be just the smallest thing. The government can be very, very particular about documentation, and there's nothing wrong with that.
And in my own family, there was an individual, I had an aunt who passed away, and she'd written in her own personal will that she wanted a certain amount of funds to be delivered to myself and some other members of my family. But she had a husband that was still living who had his own family, and he wanted those funds to go to his family instead. And so because, you know, of the marriage relationship they had, he was able to say, no, it's going to go here instead. So if I had been living my life with the idea that I'm going to, you know, inherit this and I don't have to worry about anything, then that would have been a very bad thing for me. But I have this general philosophy that whenever it comes to my finances, I hope that other things will come my way, and it's nice if that happens. But my general philosophy is I'm going to make my plans based on the idea that I am supporting myself indefinitely for all of my life. I don't think like, well, I'm going to make about 50%, and then my husband will do this, and then of course I'm probably going to get this inheritance, and then I'm going to pay off this debt. No, you don't know if any of those things will ever happen. If they do, that's wonderful, and that's, you know, bonus. But if not, basically plan to support yourself. That's kind of how I have set up my own thinking so that I can have that long-term success. So preparing for my 80-year-old self. What am I doing today? How am I getting to the property? And also planning out meticulously, if I'm going to be doing this property rental thing in the future, how much does it cost to start? Like the cheapest property I can get, okay, let me divide that up over some period of time. Say it costs $50,000. That seems like a lot. But if I want to get to that, how much do I need to make? Like, what's the least amount I can make week by week to get there as soon as possible? What am I doing to get that? Does my job pay enough? Can I put enough in savings on my own? No? Okay. What part-time job can I do either online? What special skills do I have that I can rake in some extra cash? So, you know, just thinking about a lot of that. And there's also other things too, like CDs and bonds. And if you're savvy
index portfolios, Forex is a big thing right now. There are so many ways. I was going to touch on that. Multiple streams is very important. I think that sometimes we get lost in, and a lot of it is based on our knowledge of finances. You know, we get lost in that. I'm going to go work this job. And millennials, I think I'm a millennial. I'm really not sure. I can't keep up with all these labels. I just can't.
I think we are. Yeah.
But, you know, our parents and people who come before us, and even in the workplace they want you to go to work day to day, and that this company will take care of you to the end. But millennials, we're kind of like, you're not treating me right here, I'm leaving. You know, after a year, you're in academia, you're doing something that you love, but that's very rare. You know what I mean? It's a rarity, and people are starting and they're quitting jobs. So when that happens, it's like, what are you doing with the money as you make it? It's okay. It's okay. If you want to quit job, I'm not mad at anybody. Don't do anything that makes you unhappy, because it's not good for your mental health. And what are you doing with the money that you make? With that, like I was saying, I make my savings it's a fixed cost for me every month. Do I constantly take time, do you set aside a certain amount of time to go look at different index portfolios? Hey, I'm working this job for a year. I'm only going to make $40,000 this year, 20,000, or maybe not 20, 10,000 of the income that I have. How am I going to invest it to grow it? And I think that that's so important. And it's not just about stocks. It's not just about Forex. It's, you know, it's that same thing. Like, what do I have to offer the world? Have you got on, I think it's called something Hands or something, but you can get on there, and as a freelancer, you've learned to build websites, or you learned you're really, really good at building websites on Wix. People really don't care. They just want a quality product, and they want to do it on a contract W-9 basis. They don't want to be responsible for anyone a lot of times. You can be a personal assistant virtually. You know, what do you have to offer the world, and what are those multiple streams, so that if that boss does make you mad and you say, I quit, before you think about all of your bills, what other source of income do you have to fall back on? And I think that even though we don't, as millennials, really, I don't want to say we don't care for jobs, but we do not feel
indebted to those
jobs like our parents did, where they stayed even if they were harassed at work or discriminated against or something like that. You know, we don't feel indebted to those jobs. We will leave, and we don't have a problem with it. But that lapse in communication on finances, what else do you have that you can offer the world? Because it's really funny. It's kind of funny, because the generation before us, all of those people tend to have some type of skill. Like, your uncle could build a house, but somehow he works for the electric company. But he could literally stop doing what he's doing this whole entire time and just build a house from the ground up. You know what I mean?
I think that's something that's an important point you're hitting on too, because I think it's something that a lot of us don't think about anymore. We're just like, we get into a job, and oftentimes we do have some sort of skill, but there are many jobs that are out there where you don't really have to have a particularly strong skill set to do that job, but almost anyone can kind of get into it and learn it and pick it up and run with it. But I think that it is very important for millennials, for the generation that's coming after us, to always, if you don't have a skill, you can have one. And everyone has a little bit of free time, especially when you're younger, to cultivate that. So it's important to work on cultivating a skill over time. That way, if you want to do something extra to earn some more money or something happens to your job, you can go to that and try to like pick up some experience too. So like, for example, if your experience is in, you know, you have a very keen eye and you like to do things online and you want to build websites, take some courses and actually find like a friend or two that you can build a website for, and have something that you can show people when you decide to go that route, so that you're not just like, I can build websites because I've done it. No, show them, look, I have this portfolio of at least 2 or 3 sites that I've already built, so that you can see that I can do this, rather than by just telling you, I've been practicing this at home in my free time. Like, that's very nice, but in the business world, we want proof that you
want proof.
what you're doing. And also too, the whole like switching jobs thing, that's definitely true. Many of my friends will sometimes switch jobs, but something that I think that we don't think about as much, and I'm not quite sure why this happens with millennials and other generations, maybe it's not really a thing, I'm not sure, is that I was always raised to believe that if you're going to change your job, don't change it until you have the other job. Don't have that like delay period. Like, you can do the 2 weeks notice and give yourself a break in between or whatever, but don't just quit your job just because I'm feeling, you know, impassioned. I didn't like what they did, so I'm just going to quit. Like, well,
that email just rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah, like if you
lunch break and never come back.
I feel that if you really like, you're quitting because like there was an issue at the job, but I've had that kind of thing happen before, where they're not between myself and anyone that worked there. I've seen, you know, issues at the workplace, and I was like, I don't know if I want to be in this environment. There seems to be some personal issues here, personnel issues here. And so I might need to leave that environment, but I wouldn't leave it until I was like, I love myself and my lifestyle. So I'm going to leave, but I'm going to plan it out. I'm going to start applying today to other positions. And as soon as I have that next job, okay, until I have the next job, I will deal with what's happening here and do the best that I can every day. Or maybe talk to some friends who can help me to get another job somewhere. But I'll always go from one job to the next. It's also easier to get a job if you already have employment.
Have a job.
Having that long gap in employment on your resume doesn't look great, because then there's questions as to, what were you doing during that period of time? Why weren't you taking care of yourself? Like, were you educating yourself? That's one thing. But if there's just like a gap and nothing is happening, why? After a certain point in life, I feel like that starts to not look so great. So I always try to, and you can keep feelers out, like stay active on, you know, places where people can help you, like LinkedIn. You can even begin to use, I know some people who use Facebook, even though it's a social platform, to just talk about their work. So that if there's ever any time where there's an issue, they can send other employers, like, look at my Facebook, you can see what I've done, you know, selling this or that, and how customers engaged me and all of that. So you can think strategically about all of that, but I consider that an act of self-love, almost. Taking care of yourself financially, because your finances, it might seem like an impersonal, cold sort of thing, but allows you to live your beautiful, wonderful life, right? So it's important to look at it like that too.
100%. I 100% believe that. Am I a dream? I'm not a dreamer, but I don't believe, I agree with you. I do not believe in quitting a job until you have another job. And with that, I can't get away from this. I cannot get away from this. I cannot get away from the fact that set cost, you know, that fixed cost of savings, that's why it's so important. So if I have to leave this job and I have to take another job that's only bringing in, you know, this little amount, I'm not hurting myself emotionally and mentally trying to stay at this job because it pays me this certain amount. Whereas I could take another job that pays a little bit less, but I'm ahead of the curve because for a year and a half, I worked somewhere where I was making 60 to 80,000, even though this job may pay only 40 to 50,000. You know, I'm ahead of the curve because I always had a fixed cost of savings. And, you know, I'm so saddened. I'm really, really saddened by, of course, the current state of the world, but even more so the things that it's revealing. It's revealing that people they don't know how to budget. You know, uh, they 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 didn't see the importance of saving, so they didn't save. If I got money, I should spend it. And their knowledge and understanding of what the I don't want to say the world, but businesses who they patron can and cannot do to them. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, as far as raising interest rates, I'm sure a lot of people have experienced, I've been seeing it, but I follow a lot of financial literacy stuff online where people are saying they closed my credit card, even though I've been paying on time. Now I no longer have this line of credit. And, you can't rely on those lines of credit, but they're closing them because they consider you not spending enough. Yeah. Or, they're like, oh, I took this time because I'm getting the, I guess, the unemployment benefit and all that. I use that money to pay my credit cards down, and they're closing their lines of credit, and it's just so disheartening to see people struggling, like really struggling, because they don't understand how they should. Let me not say how they should. The best way for them to conduct themselves in the American economy to ensure that long-term, their 80-year-old self, their 40-year-old self, their 25-year-old self during the coronavirus is well taken care of.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
It's a difficult time for everyone, and
difficult.
It's even more difficult now to have, say, for example, if you want to have multiple streams of income. I have a friend who does that. For every bill she has, and so something that was passed down from her grandmother, I believe, she's been taught to, and she doesn't have tons of bills or anything, but for each bill, she tries to have at least one stream of income for that bill. So she has a couple of small part-time jobs, and so she'll have, one job where she does something involving events that takes care of rent. She'll have another job where she has customers that see her one-on-one for something, and that takes care of, electric. Maybe the water bill is something that she splits with other roommates she has. And so she finds a way to make sure that each bill she has is being supported by something. And as long as she's consistent with those things she's doing and plans, at least a month or so ahead to make sure that those things are still ongoing for herself, she can continue to take care of her payments. And then she puts money away for savings and things as well, so that she's prepared for her future. But not everyone has been that fortunate in this current climate.
Yeah. And then I think that goes back to having a job is great, no matter what you're doing, no matter how high paying it is or how low paying it is. Having a job is great, but what's even more greater is turning around and investing in yourself so that you can have those additional streams, so that you can go do events, taking those skills that job, exactly, taking the skills that job teaches you and making it a skill set for yourself that you can then contract out. Like events, I'm sure she had to, maybe she didn't have to, but I'm sure she probably had a job at one point that she was responsible for events. And she took that and she created her portfolio. And then she, took some low paying jobs while at that job.
While she was working, and I do the same thing as much as I can, try to, even though I have a job and things are going well for myself, I still stay connected to, for example, women's business networks. And I'll continue to go to group things. And some people are going to those different gatherings with the intent to meet others they can consider future business partners, or who, can help them to get a job or something. I don't need that, but I stay in those networks because the future is endless possibilities.
Obviously, welcome to 2020.
Yes. And it's also helpful. You may meet someone that's doing something that is interesting to you. Maybe that's a fun side project that you can work on for a quarter of the year or something, and you make some income from that. So it's important to stay connected. Like I said, LinkedIn and all that, but meetup.com is all over the country.
Wait, what is it called?
Meetup.com is a site that you can use. People often use it to, like, you know, engage in different social things that are happening in their local area.
Mm-hmm.
And you can pursue, like, if say your interest is books, you want to join a book club, and
Mm-hmm.
your local library isn't having anything, but you know you want to do something, go to meetup.com and type book club and see if there's anything happening in your area. Oftentimes, if I search for something like that, I'll find at least a dozen different groups that are meeting. They've just organically formed over time, and they're meeting all over the place near me. I'm in one right now that I found from meetup.com. And it's a great tool for that, social, but there is a professional aspect to it as well. There may be a professional women's network that's on there. You can perhaps just join that and talk about financial strategies, or what business techniques have you learned? How can you be better at public speaking? Things that you can use in your business life. And staying connected to that can be helpful, just, you know, for your business life, whatever you're already doing, but it can be helpful for your future too, if it ever happens that you want to transition out of your career and do something else, or you want to, or you lose your job and you need to ask those individuals you're connected with, hey, how can you help me to find a new job? Because I left the one that I was in, or that company is no longer in existence, or whatever happens. Now I need to move forward, and I have all these connections, all these feelers out there that can help me to get into employment again, or they can help me to build my own business, or whatever it is you're trying to pursue.
Yeah.
But there's always a path forward if you plan ahead for it. If you plan for the future, you'll be ready for it. Not planning is planning to fail. So, and then of course, like you said, like staying tuned to your channel, for example, the Miss Black Texas channel, and being aware of what there is that you can do in regards to your financial literacy, staying tuned to what's going on, knowing where you stand, understanding new things that maybe didn't exist when you were young. Like for a lot of older people, that might be things like Bitcoin. That's something that's new in the finance world.
Yeah.
Keeping up with that is something that could be valuable. So I'm really glad that I had a chance to sit down and talk to you about a lot of this. I was wondering if you have any final points, by the way, that I do have to go to another meeting, but I love talking about this topic.
I do. I know we're going to talk about this so much more, and it'll be so much more broken down in the future. But one thing I really, really want to push home is write down your financial goals. I think we talked about that in the last one, like writing it down. Write down your financial goals, and don't think of savings as its own little, you know, I think people are so afraid of savings, but savings honestly will save you. So please set that up as a fixed cost in your, yay, yay, me and you're gonna work on your budget together, 100%. Like, I'm budget queen, I'm always writing stuff out. But literally, you guys, please save. We're gonna talk about that more on my social media platform, YouTube page coming today. This is gonna be the first video on my YouTube page. But
what's the name of your YouTube channel, just so that I can continue to
say it? It'll be Say It Sabrina.
Say It Sabrina. Awesome.
So you guys, write down your financial goals and save. I just want you to go online right now and Google how to save. Okay, and please pay attention to my social platforms, social media platforms, because we'll be going through different ways you can save. So many different ways. You could work your regular job, drive Uber, and put all the Uber money in your savings, or 50% of the Uber money in your savings. It doesn't matter. But nonetheless, you guys, Money Tip Monday is to save, okay? And write your financial goals down.
Save. I got
it.
Well, thank you so much for participating in this video with me, Sabrina. I learned a lot, and I'm glad I had a chance to speak to you.
Me too. I'm so glad to talk to you anytime, Miss Florida. I love you.
All right. Love you too, girl.
Bye. Bye.